Good morning. Right, I'm just going to check that this is coming out here. Not that it matters, nobody ever watches these things. Yep, that is coming out there. So, the book which I've been working on, The Hermetic Story, isn't going to be published for a little while. But where I'm up to is at the end of 6.5 years' work getting this company ready, which builds on basically rebuilding from the end of the global financial crisis. Now, when I moved to Sweden in 2010, I started studying, well, what the bloody hell was that, this global financial crisis, having already been through the dot-com bubble, the early 90s recession, Margaret Thatcher coming to power in 79, in the oil crisis in the early 70s. I was living in Germany. I can remember petrol coupons and all this sort of thing. Well, I'm 62 years old in September, and the cycle, the longer cycle that we're coming to the end of and going through at the moment, really has played out throughout my lifetime. And I'm a tail end boomer, born in 1964. The baby boomer generation post Second World War. So, which is Bretton Woods to the Nixon shock. Then the Nixon shock through to now has been the age of neoliberalism, basically. And the neoliberals basically have, since the mid 60s, been rolling back and trying to regain the power and control that they had in the Gilded Age, which was wrested away in the early 20th century by people like my grandfather, who basically was the secretary of the Miners' Lodge at the colliery in Tonnereville, and his book The Miner's Tale is published in the Joe Forge Library, etc. But anyway, I can't write this book until I've finished launching the company and the company's up and running and what have you. I mean, the company has been up and running for 6.5 years, but not operational, and we're going operational this summer, which is quite exciting. But the challenges are, not inconsiderable. And anyway, so what I'm going to do, I've got just from the fiction, which is basically based on real insights into stuff made into fiction, because it's easier, with poetry and fiction, to say things that otherwise can't remain unsaid. So today's blog, which this is embedded in, this live thing and these readings. So this is the prequel to Conquest of Dough. So this is the Strawberry Conspiracy, the Plantsman prequel to Conquest of Dough. So it says it there, it must be true. And it's a natural history of artificial scarcity. I'll just read the author's note. This tale was discovered among the papers of Will Cuppy, 1884 to 1949, the American humorist and nature writer known for How to Tell Your Friends from the Apes, and other works of satirical natural history. While Kippy died young, before the events described herein, his papers contained detailed notes for a work he apparently intended to call The Plantsman, along with extensive footnotes in his characteristic style. The manuscript appears to have been completed by persons unknown, possibly members of what the text refers to as the Abundance Network. Whether this represents genuine prophecy, elaborate fiction, or documentary evidence of events yet to unfold remains a matter for readers to determine. The strawberry plants mentioned in this account have not been officially verified by agricultural authorities, though reports of unusually productive strawberry varieties continue to circulate through informal networks. Readers are advised to draw their own conclusions about the relationship between fiction and reality. As Cuppy himself might have noted, the difference between a fairy tale and a true story is often a matter of timing. And right, so that's got pages of footnotes from the prologue. So I'm going to read the first few pages of chapter 1, The Discovery, in which nature makes a mistake that threatens civilization. Bunto Fairweather discovered the everlasting strawberry on a Tuesday, which was his first mistake. Tuesdays are traditionally reserved for mundane disasters, broken washing machines, tax demands, and the realization that one has run out of milk, not for discoveries that could revolutionize agriculture and thereby threaten the entire economic order. The strawberry plant sat innocuously in section 7B of perpetual growth nurseries, between the genetically modified roses that bloomed for exactly 30 days before requiring replacement, and the ornamental cabbages designed to wilt photogenically for Instagram posts. Unlike its neighbours, this particular plant showed no signs of planned obsolescence that had made perpetual growth the third largest horticultural corporation in the Northern Hemisphere. Rog, called Bunto to his colleague, who was busy explaining to a customer why their £200 Japanese maple had died after precisely 13 months. This strawberry hasn't been watered in 3 weeks and it's producing more fruit than a government inquiry produces excuses. Rog Petrichor looked up from his customer consultation where he was demonstrating the company's new sympathy guarantee, a policy that offered emotional support but no financial compensation for plant mortality. That's impossible, he replied, with the confidence of a man who had spent 15 years watching expensive plants die on schedule. Everything dies. It's the first law of horticulture and the foundation of our business model. But the strawberry plant, apparently unaware of economic necessity, continued producing perfect red fruit while its soil remained as dry as a banker's conscience. It's a good read. I've been listening to it on the car radio from the EPUB. So there we are. That's available as a paperback from Barnes & Noble, and that's the prequel to The Conquest of Dough. So I started writing that before I wrote The Conquest of Dough, and then realized that I needed to finish The Conquest of Dough before I finished that. Yeah, I mean, the sequence of how or when they were written and all the rest of it doesn't really matter, but there's a theme throughout it, which is basically me thinking out loud about, well, what the hell was that global financial crisis in 2008, and then everything that came after. And then, of course, we all went through what I call Event 201, bloody COVID. And with that, almost instantly I thought, no, this is just all wrong. This is a heap of bullshit. And I think that since that instinct, that deep skepticism, even cynicism of the narratives that were being pushed like bloody crazy, has been vindicated since. And whatever percentage of the population haven't still cottoned on, I have no idea, but I think it's fairly substantial. So anyway, so that then brings us to after the COVID thing died out and we switched into the Ukraine war. Right, and 2 years into that, I finished The Conquest of Dough, and it's published as part of what I called the Going Direct Paradigm Spring of 2024, which was this novel, which I started writing in 2016, and that which was all leading up to everything that had happened in Libya and then in Syria, etc. But anyway, so I'm going to read chapter 19, which is the Going Direct Paradigm Spring of 2024. Deja vu all over again, talking about a revolution. Oh, wow, let's talk about the Going Direct Paradigm Spring of 2024. It's like totally the most exciting thing to ever happen in the history of the universe. I mean, we're talking about a pivotal juncture in civil society, global business and governance. It's like so deeply rooted in historical events from the mid-70s, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 global financial crisis, and the COVID-19 event 201. Going direct, flux d'etat. I mean, how could anyone not be bouncing off the walls with excitement over this stuff? So like the internet and information intermediaries have totally transformed the dynamics of power and influence. It's like we're living in a real life superhero movie, but instead of capes and masks, we've got historical context, philosophical perspectives, and technological advancements. I mean, who needs Batman when you've got diverse fields and multidisciplinary approaches? Am I right? And get this, we're developing strategies for ethical decision making and sustainable business practices. It's like we're all part of a super secret spy mission to save the world from unethical business practices. I can practically see the action-packed movie trailer now. But wait, there's more. We're also embracing a holistic understanding of evolving geopolitical and economic dynamics. I mean, who needs roller coasters when you've got historical insights and philosophical frameworks to shape a sustainable and ethical future for global business and governance? It's like we're all on a wild ride through not time and space, but instead of spaceships, we've got trust, belief, and motivation. And then there's all this talk about chartered rights and monopoly. It's like a real life game of Monopoly, but instead of buying up properties, we're dealing with the rights of mankind and the sanctity of public faith. I can just imagine the board game now. Monopoly, the civil society edition. But hey, let's not forget about the great tradition of starting at the beginning. I mean, who doesn't love a good closing statement? Evaluation of personal growth and intellectual exploration. That's like the most thrilling roller coaster ride through self-discovery anyone could ever ask for. And then there's all this talk about extremists trying to tear us apart and a shocking increase in extremist disruption. It's like a real life action movie with political twists and turns. I can practically see the dramatic slow motion shots and intense music playing in the background. Oh, and I don't even get me started on Liz Truss's revolution about the Bank of England governor having more power than the Prime Minister. It's like a real life political drama with unexpected plot twists. Who needs reality TV when you've got political intrigue? And then there's all this talk about our democracy being as good as dead. It's like a suspenseful thriller with a touch of dystopian fiction. Who needs fiction novels when you've got real life political commentary that reads like a page turner? I mean, seriously, who needs Hollywood blockbusters when you've got the going direct paradigm spring of 2024? It's like a non-stop roller coaster ride through political intrigue, economic drama, and ethical decision making. And hey, if nothing else, at least it makes for some seriously entertaining reading material. So as you see, the dough is about the bread, and the bread is a metaphor for dough, and Prince Peter Kropotkin should have the last word. Will it be mutual aid or the conquest of bread for the last words of the conquest of dough? In our civilized societies, we are rich, but then are the many poor. Why then are the many poor? Why this painful drudgery for the masses? Why even to the best paid workman this uncertainty for the morrow? In the midst of all the wealth inherited from the past, and in spite of the powerful means of production, which could ensure comfort to all in return for a few hours of daily toil. Why indeed? And then this book finishes with 3 poems, usually Hell's Fuel, Man's Oppressor, Bourgeois Resolution, and Globalization Unentangled, which were 3 poems which I called a trilogy in 4 parts, this being the 4th part. So there we are, that's the Conquest of Dough. So you've got the themes there: conquest of bread, Peter Kropotkin, mutual aid. Okay, so then this, the Clockwork Forest, the Conquest of AI, which is a series of dialogues which go through lots of themes in my different blogs over the years. Essentially, I started on Blogger, then went to WordPress, then went from a paid subscription to WordPress to the free edition, back and forth a few times. In the early 2020s, I had not an Ubuntu, a Yumpu account, and I published a lot on there. All of those publications, it was very expensive, Yumpu, so I closed the account. And I I've downloaded all of the stuff, but it's not available in the same sort of structured, curated way that it had been, or where it had evolved on there. So anyway, let's just read chapter 3, chapter 23. Right, chapter 23: the secret senators, Wexner's war, and the Internet of Things. The pub in Cardiff was dimly lit, its walls lined with old books and faded photographs of coal miners, a nod to the city's industrial past. Robin and Johnny Redmore sat across from each other at a small wooden table, their drinks untouched as they delved into the murky waters of global power structures, hidden agendas, and the technological future that loomed over them all. Johnny leaned back in his chair, tapping a printout of his own article. Epstein, Junkerman, September the 1st, 2002, The Secret Senators and the Wexner War on Iraq. So, Robin, let's start with this. The connections are all there. Epstein, Junkerman, Wexner. It's not just about personal scandals or even financial corruption. It's about networks of power, influence, and control. These people don't just shape policy, they shape reality. What's your take? Robin, ever the philosopher, stroked his chin thoughtfully. It's a web, Johnny, a web of money, blackmail, and ideology. Wexner and Epstein weren't just players, they were nodes in a network that spans governments, corporations, and intelligence agencies. Junkerman's role ties into that perfectly. She's the bridge between the tech oligarchs and the political elite. And it's not just about Iraq or even the Middle East. It's about control on a global scale. Johnny nodded, his eyes narrowing. Exactly, and that's where the Internet of Things comes in, doesn't it? The 5G rollout, the smart cities, the surveillance state. It's the next phase of control. They're not just watching us anymore. They're embedding themselves into every aspect of our lives. The question is, Robin, is this dystopia or utopia? Robin smiled wryly. That depends on who you ask. To the oligarchs, it's a utopia, a world where they can monitor and manipulate every transaction, every conversation, every thought. To the rest of us, it's dystopia, a digital prison disguised as progress. The 5G Internet of Things is the infrastructure of control, Johnny. It's the technocratic dream made real. Johnny leaned forward, his tone urgent. And yet 6 billion people shook their heads and shouted, no, enough. That's what the article in Grub Street in Exile said. There's resistance, Robin. People are waking up. The question is, how do we channel that resistance into something meaningful? Robin took a sip of his drink, his expression thoughtful. We start by exposing the web for what it is. Your article on Epstein, Junkerman, and Wexner does exactly that. It shows how these networks operate, how they manipulate events to serve their interests. But we also need to offer alternatives. The Internet of Things doesn't have to be dystopian. It can be decentralized, democratic, and empowering. The technology isn't the problem, it's the people who control it. The all-quadrant, all-levels framework. Johnny raised an eyebrow. You're talking about Wilber's all-quadrants, all-levels framework, aren't you? The idea that we need to address the individual, the collective, the interior, and the exterior all at once. How does that apply here? Robin nodded. Exactly. The Internet of Things operates on all quadrants and all levels. Individually, it affects our privacy and autonomy. Collectively, it shapes our societies and economies internally. It influences our thoughts and behaviors externally. It changes the physical world we live in. To resist it or to reshape it, we need a holistic approach. We can't just focus on one aspect and ignore the others. Johnny leaned back, a smile playing on his lips. And that's where the miners come in, isn't it? Your grandfather's memoir, Miner's Tale, is a reminder of what collective action can achieve. The miners didn't just fight for better wages, they fought for dignity, for community, for a better way of life. Maybe we need to bring that spirit into the digital age. Robin's eyes lit up. Exactly, Johnny. The miners understood something we've forgotten, that power doesn't just come from technology or money, it comes from people working together for a common cause. If we can apply that lesson to the Internet of Things, we might just turn dystopia into utopia. Rethinking democracy and banishing the isms. Their conversation shifted to another Grub Street in Exile article. Rethinking democracy, challenging neoliberalism, and embracing people power. Johnny tapped the table for emphasis. Neoliberalism has hollowed out democracy, Robin. It's turned it into a talking shop, a facade that hides the real power structures. If we want to challenge the Wexners and the Junkermans of the world, we need to rethink democracy itself. We need more Pelagian free will, and another article put it, more action, less dogma. Robin nodded. Banishing the isms, that's the key, Johnny. Capitalism, socialism, neoliberalism, they're all just tools of control. We need to step out of Babylon, as the article says, and build something new. Something's not just done to us, but done by us. Johnny smiled, and maybe that starts here in this pub with a conversation between two people who refuse to accept the status quo. Robin raised his glass. To resistance, Johnny, and to the 6 billion people who said no. As their conversation wound down, the pub around them buzzed with life, a microcosm of the world they were fighting for. Outside, the city of Cardiff stretched out under a darkening sky, its streets filled with people who, knowingly or not, were part of the same struggle. Stay tuned for chapter 24, where the group delves into Bitter Lake, Princes of the Yen, and the Great Unravelling. Expect sharp critiques, bold ideas, and perhaps even a glimmer of hope for the future. So there we are, Clockwork Forest, the Conquest of AI. Now, we're talking about the paradigm swing of 2024 in those readings. 2025, where the Strawberry conspiracies, Strawberry Manifesto, actually then took shape into this book, The Circle of Blame, the Anthology of Blame. So most of my substacks from last April up until July, there were lots of strawberries, lots of strawberry stuff. So, but The Circle of Blame, Anthology of Blame, I'm just going to read a couple of chapters from here on this artificial scarcity theme. So, The Solution Hidden in Plain Sight, chapter 46. Father Brown's garden had now become something extraordinary, a living mandala with every flower, every leaf, every shadow seemed to participate in a pattern of meaning that was simultaneously artistic, scientific, spiritual, and practical. The solution, Father Brown said quietly, is not to take sides in the circle of blame, but to step outside it entirely. McIlchrist leaned forward. Blake did this by refusing to separate his roles as artist, mystic, craftsman, and observer of nature. He was integrated not because he rejected analysis, but because he never let analysis become the whole of reality. The path forward, Vernon realized, isn't to choose between science and spirituality, but to practice the kind of consciousness that Blake embodied, precise attention wedded to imaginative vision. Sheldrake smiled, and as more people practice this integrated consciousness, the morphic field of wholeness strengthens, making it easier for others to access. Number 3, Martin Nowak and Leonardo da Vinci. Circle of Blame, 31.7766% solution. Being a David Malone analysis of how mathematical cooperation theory becomes a weapon in the war against understanding. In Father Brown's garden, where numbers bloom, the morning mist hung over Father Brown's garden like a statistical distribution curve, and in the centre of it all sat Martin Nowak, staring at a chessboard where the pieces had been replaced with cooperators and defectors. Now, Martin Nowak, I think he got suspended at Stanford because part of this work was funded by Jeffrey Epstein. And it's quite funny, in David Malone, David's a friend of mine, in David's film, Why Are We Here? There's a long segment with Martin Nowak about super cooperators, 12 log 2 minus 8. Now, I was speaking to David a couple of weeks ago, and I discovered that Martin had this problem with funding from Epstein, who'd funded a lot of people. And Martin was kind of made an example of. But Epstein put a lot of money into that academic world. There's a lot of money in academia, and we talk about getting the money or corporate money out of academia. We need to get it out of politics, rather. Needs to get it out of science and academia as well, because it's basically paying to be made to look better than it is, or to hush up criticisms, as it were. He who pays the piper calls the tune, that sort of thing. Anyway, so the theme continues. So Epstein, Junkerman, Epstein, Wexner, the Epstein class, neoliberalism, you know, this whole continuum. I call it a continuum. AI calls it an arc, the arc. But anyway, there we are. That's the Circle of Blame, Anthology of Blame. Lots of strawberries on the cover, as you can see, all available at Barnes and Noble and paperback, or most of these are available for $4.99 on doforge.org as EPUBs, which if you use the EPUB app, you can actually listen to them. So going from the Circle of Blame and my work last summer, I then spent the rest of the year in the UK on Hermatics. And Hermatics has been since then finalizing its first transaction. And that's something that's ongoing. Hopefully it will sign up in the next few weeks. All the documentation is, it's almost there. It's been almost there since December though. So it's been quite frustrating. And part of what I've done to fill the time in the meantime is I've been busy, you know, transposing notes, working on the Doforge library, and the final part of that is actually this here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share screen now, and there we are. It's this window. Share. Right, I can now, there we are. So the Hermetic story, in fact, you can see here in Reedsy, I've been working on it. That's lots of different drafts. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. So there are 40,000 words here of the Hermetic story. Forward, the issue which swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is the people versus the banks. Lord Acton. That's the beginning of a blog the other day. But let's just get back here. There we are. So this is the blog that this is embedded in. There we are. You can see the beginning of it there because I froze it. And last summer's work ahead of going back was all to do with the Circle of Blame and this idea of the fictional mind, which I'd been discussing with David Malone last year. And then it kind of clicked why nothing ever gets done. And that's what this blog is, you know, it's also the want algorithm and stuff like that, which is in the Strawberry Conspiracy. Artificial scarcity is the thing, and how things seem to go around in ever decreasing or ever increasing circles, really. And so just going through the blog, what I'm going to round off by reading The Oyster by Amar Odafe, which is a poem. That's basically the outline of the Hermetic story with all the good bits taken out. And this is this meet the old boss saying as new boss. That's John Burko, and he was celebrating 130 years of the Interparliamentary Union. Now, who knew? That was a few years ago. And basically, you know, this idea of the New World Order or world government, globalism, and all the rest of it. This organization was founded in 1889, and this is how long all of this stuff has been in train. We're at the time at the moment where we should be defeating these people again. That's basically all I'll say. And so I moved from the general and, you know, explaining what things seem to be, to more analysis based on the circle of blame, and then out of that, my take on what to do. I mean, hematics is the embodiment of how I think one can operate outside of the global corporate monopoly state. So that's the Commonwealth, new Commonwealth of Oceania, rise and fall of all circles of blame, and 10 steps to affordable housing feed into how hematics has cut its cloth, as it were, to try and tailor affordable homes to people who need affordable homes, or so people can order homes that they need. So basically, boomers that want to downsize have got to be really careful at the moment, because the banks are coming to eat your lunch. So that's the other thing. And by allying the boomer generation with the people who need affordable homes and putting those things together, and taking the middleman, which is the extractive banks and the extractive part of the system out, including the, you know, you'll own nothing and be happy people. So, for instance, the Fabian Society, their latest report on what their advice to Andy Burnham, you know, meet this, oh, whatever. There's no reason why people shouldn't live in affordable homes that they own. And that, as I say, is because of the gradient and the Bank of International Settlements, and it really is, and that's what the fair index. This is the explanatory book of that. The unfair index is explaining the fair index. And at the end of this blog, there's a comment on Neil Hudson's recent FT article. Now he does a technical thing about housing called built place, which is very, very good, and has a lot of data and all the rest of it. And in fact, his article in the FT is pretty good, but it doesn't go far enough. I make my comment, and I actually then refer to, in my comment, which is linked to this, which is the final sort of technical trilogy of So You Think You Know About Money, Think Again, Volume 1. And at the very beginning of Volume 1 is this poem, which is reproduced from Amar O'Duffy's Asses in Clover, which was published in 1993. And I'm going to finish this blog just by reading this. Chapter 1, The Bumper Sticker You Have Been Taught. The sun was shining brightly upon the fields below. He did his very best to make the corn and fruit to grow. And that was wrong, because it brings the prices down, you know. The corn was ripening in the fields, the fruit upon the tree. The shops were full and laden ships were sailing on the sea. All things had a fictitious look of fair prosperity. And that was wrong, because the world was ruined utterly. The banker and economists were walking hand in hand. They wept like anything to see such plenty in the land. If this were only stopped, they said, the prospect would be grand. If 7 pests or 7 plagues were loosened every year, I think, said the economist, that things would then be dear. I wonder, said the banker, and wiped away a tear. Consumer, come and walk with us, they both did make request. The time has come to tell you what we think for you is best. Oh, thank you, the consumer said with lively interest. And first, said the economist, it's needful to explain the economic laws which prove that trade must wax and wane, and why abundance is a curse and scarcity a gain. But not to me, the man replied, turning a little white. Such dismal scientific stuff would stupefy me quite. I'll take it all on trust, because I know you must be right. 2 winking eyes behind the back of that consumer met, as if to say, this blessed boob has asked for what he'll get. Old chap, said the economist, your trust you won't regret. This gross abundance that you see before your hungry eyes has ruined all the primary producing industries, and so to set things right again we must economize. And first we'll make a cut in costs by cutting down your screw. And next we'll cut production down till prices rise anew. Then though you'll have less goods to buy, more work you'll have to do. Righto, the good consumer said, a sturdy Briton he, and smiling bravely yielded up his share of LSD, that's pounds, shillings and pence. By such contraction wages show their elasticity. It seems a shame, the banker said, to play him such a prank. With sobs and tears he cancelled out a credit at the bank, and that was right unless you are a monetary crank. Consumer said, that pleasant pair, we've had a useful day. Shall we be trotting home again? But nothing did he say, and that was right enough, because he'd faded quite away. That is a brilliant poem. Shout out to the Dork from Cork, because it's the Dork from Cork. I got that from a thread. I think it was either Twitter or it used to be comment on the Gollum 14 blog. Anyway, so Think Again, Volume 1. So you think you know about money, City Cam for short. There are 2 other volumes, E4s and Doing Direct, and The Unfair Index. And I'll probably do another reading on that when I'm waiting to get this documentation done. And as that's going on, I'm finishing off this book here. Now, just in here, obviously everything's in complete turmoil at the moment with all this Burnham stuff and all the rest of it. And this is interesting because this guy here is briefing against Andy Burnham, and one of his proposals, which is for a land value tax, and he's misrepresenting what it is in the same way that people misrepresent the idea of sovereign monetary creation. So this guy was elevated to House of Lords. He's really young. It's this guy here, Ross Kempsell, Baron Kempsell, born in 1992. You know that he's been elevated to the House of Lords. I mean, I am getting old because he looks like, what is he, 34? You know, when they say policemen are looking too young to be policemen, you know, they should still be at school. I mean, this is what I'm getting here. But he basically is a spad, has never done anything, I mean, obviously it's pots calling kettle black with these guys, because he's having to go at Andy Burnham, and he's the same professional politician, all the rest of it. And what they are is they're advocating for a system, and it's the macroprudential thing that runs on the whole bit, which is the BIS. And Carney, who's the ex-governor of the Bank of Canada, Bank of England, Goldman Sachs person, who's now the Prime Minister of Canada, and Canada has taken a really bad turn. It used to actually have monetary sovereignty, which it doesn't have anymore. And the whole bit of what Tony Blair did, Blair was a continuation of Thatcher. Cameron was a continuation of Blair, and they seek to distinguish themselves from all of this, but they all are effectively, they're all the bankers' bitches, basically. They're all the BIS's bitches, to put it into the sort of a more sort of a coarser vernacular, as it were. Anyway, so I'm going to sign off there. And as I say, yeah, none of this is new. Yeah, I mean, basically, don't get fooled again. Just don't get fooled again by anything. That includes Farage as well, because he's no different, frankly. Trump as well. You know, it really is time to just say no. Go to Wiki Ballot and have a local primary or something. We've got to get these people out. The blind leading the blind, or maybe they're not blind, they're just pretending to be. But you know, that poem, have a listen, find it, have a read, and consider. And this whole artificial scarcity, you know, scarcity, abundance is the way of nature, not scarcity. Whereas scarcity is the way of financialized usury. And that approach is not a left or right thing. It's not a communist, it's definitely a fascist thing, but communism, Nazi, the whole bit, frankly, what people argue about superficial appearances of things rather than looking, well, what are the workings here? And what you find when you dig, this is my case, is you find that the people making these arguments are serving the underlying gradient, which is against prosperity happening, because prosperity actually loosens the control, and the control freaks, they've just got to be stopped. You know, they're a danger to themselves and everybody else, and they just simply must be stopped.